So what's your plan if you accidentally delete important documents or photos on your Mac? Wait, you don't have a plan. You don't have a backup plan. Thanks again for tuning in, everybody. This is Mackie Tech, your home for IT solutions. So today we're going to talk about ways to back up your Mac. This is a continuation from last week's topic, and we'll be discussing how to use Apple's Time Machine as well as ways to back up your important files and documents. For today's demo, we're going to be using Mac OS Sonoma. So before we begin, I wanted to talk a little bit about terminology so we're all on the same page. So first of all, what is a backup? Well, there's a lot of different ways to define a backup, especially when it comes to a computer. Today, we're going to be talking about what's called incremental backup. Specifically, that's what Apple's Time Machine uses. Incremental backup means that the computer or the backup process only copies over any new files or changes to existing files as part of the backup. So since we're talking about computer backups, let's talk about 3-2-1, which is a backup methodology designed to back up your computer. It consists of 3 different types of backups. You have your backup to the cloud, a backup off-site, and a backup on-site. So in other words, you can have a backup that you store to iCloud backup. You can also have a backup that you have to your local time machine. And then you can also back up to an external drive that you leave at a friend's house or a relative's house, or maybe in a safety deposit box, or maybe at your work. The idea is that if there's a fire in your house and you have all of your important documents, then you have backup in the cloud. If the cloud is out, the internet's out, you still have your local backup. So it's just a matter of safeguarding yourself from all the different occurrences that can happen with your different backups. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about the different types of ports that might be available on your Mac. It really does depend on how old it is, what type it is. The newer ones today are going to come almost exclusively with this type of port here, which is called the Thunderbolt port. This is an adapter, but it's the same type of port. These ports will take the cable in any orientation, like this, and then you can also turn the cable around and plug it in this way. The other type of port that a lot of Macs will have, again, depending on which one you have, is this blue USB port. It also might be white. I would think that most Macs today won't bother with white. White is usually a little slower, and those are just different types of USB connections. And those cables are blue, like this one, or they're white, depending on the speed again. And the thing about USB is that this type of USB is that you have to plug it in a certain orientation. So the reason I bring that up is you want to make sure that the hard drive that you have for your Mac is going to be able to plug into it. A lot of hard drives these days, external ones, are going to have this type of cable. A lot of them might have adapters that will change that to a Thunderbolt. It just depends. So you just want to be very mindful, read the directions on the back of the hard drive, make sure you select the one that has the right connection so you can plug it into the Mac. Or if you don't have the right cable, you can always buy adapters like these. They don't have to be specifically sold by Apple. You can buy a lot of these off of Amazon. They're usually $20-$30 depending on how elaborate you want to get. That's a different topic for a different video, but to make sure that you select the right type of input for the external hard drive that you're going to be getting. So before we get into Time Machine, I wanted to talk a little bit about Apple's iCloud, which comes free with 5 gigabytes of storage for your files, your pictures, your documents. It's available if you have an iPhone, if you have a Mac, if you have an iMac, iPad. The cool thing about it is that it's part of Apple's ecosystem, which means that if you store a document in the iCloud on your Mac, that same document will be also available on your iPhone, your iPad. So I can send a document, save it to my iCloud folder on my Mac or on the website here, which is where I'm at. I'm at iCloud.com or Apple iCloud. and it's available for all my other Apple devices, but that's a different topic. So this is the different upgrade options. As I mentioned, it comes with 5 gigabytes of storage for free. You can upgrade to 50 gigabytes. That's for $1 a month. 200 gigabytes, 2 terabytes. Frankly, I think that they should probably sneak in a 1 terabyte option here and kind of split the difference between these two, but that's just me. The tricky thing about iCloud is it's also used to back up your iPhone data, your iPad data. So that's something that you want to be aware of, that is probably going to also be a part of your allotment of storage. Another topic I wanted to talk about is what's called formatting. Formatting is the process of preparing a hard drive so it can be read on a computer, whether it be a Windows computer or a Mac computer or any other type of computer. It essentially takes the hard drive and makes sure that it is ready to receive information so the computer can talk to it, write information from it, and read information from it. So now that we've talked a little bit about Macintosh backup drives and best practices, let's take a look at how we would format a drive that we purchase for our MacBook, or maybe a drive that we have laying around, and use it in Time Machine to start our first backup. Okay, so let's go ahead and see how we can format an external hard drive on the Mac for purposes of using Apple's Time Machine to do a backup. So we're going to go down to the toolbar here and go to Launchpad. And then we're going to go ahead and click on Other. And then under Other, we're going to go to Disk Utility. Okay, under Disk Utility, we have this little window that comes up, and this comes with all Macs. It's not something you have to download or purchase. A couple things you want to look at here real quick is we have the top portion here. We have First Aid, Partition, Erase. Erase is right here. We're going to be talking about that for the most part. If we go over to the left, we're going to have an option for internal and external. Internal is our actual Macintosh hard drive. So you do not want to mess with that under any circumstances unless you really know what you're doing. For our purposes, we're going to be looking at the external drive, which is the one I just plugged in. And this is the one that we want to format. Okay, so it's especially if you happen to buy a hard drive at Best Buy or Amazon, a lot of them will be formatted for Windows. And again, if you recall, we talked about formatting as being a way to talk to the computer. So if this one is not designed or prepared to talk to the Mac, we'll have to format it. And when you plug it in, it'll tell you that. This one is already plugged in. I'm going to go over to make sure it's highlighted. I'm going to go over to the Erase button, click on that, and it's going to be giving me an option. It's going to be Erase Seagate Free Agent GoFlex Media, and it's going to remind you that this is going to permanently erase all data stored on it. So if you're not sure what's on it, plug it into another computer that can read it and make sure there's nothing critical on there before you do anything. We'll name it. We can always rename it later. Format. This hard drive happens to be a mechanical hard drive, so we don't have that many options. So we're going to just select Mac OS Extended right here. If it were a newer drive, it would have Apple File System, and I'll link that up here, what that would look like if we're going to be needing that. So what we do is we click on Erase, and that will go ahead and format the drive for use in the Mac. Okay, so the hard drive has been formatted. Here it is right here. I named it to Mackie Tech because why not? And so now we're going to utilize this external hard drive for backup with our Apple's Time Machine. So in order to do that, we're going to go up to the Apple menu up on the far left-hand corner and go down to System Settings. And then under System Settings, we're going to click on General. And then we're going to select Apple Time Machine, which is right here. It'll just say Time Machine. It won't say Apple Time Machine, but it's right here on the bottom. And we're going to use the Mackie Tech. We're going to click on the plus sign here. And it's going to give us two options. This one happens to be for my wife. I'm going to select this top one here for Mac Tech. That's the one that we just formatted right here on the right-hand side. We can determine how much of a limit we want on the hard drive. I'm not going to select one. I'm just going to click on Done. And it's going to prepare it. And now it's ready. We do have a couple of options. What I'm going to do is after it's selected, you'll see on the right-hand side here, it's changed this icon, which means that this drive is designated for your Time Machine backup. So What that means is that we don't want to take this drive and to another computer and storing pictures on it and using it to save other documents. This is designated specifically for Time Machine. So make sure you have a drive that is specific for that purposes only. So let's highlight it here and we'll click on Options. And this is where we have a number of different options with respect to backup frequency. We have automatically every day, we have every hour, and we have every week. Now again, this is what we call incremental. As we mentioned, incremental means that it's only going to back up changes to files, or if you have new files. So if you save a new photo, a new document, and if you change those documents, every time it backs up, it's going to capture those and it's going to save those. So I'm going to leave it on every day just for my purposes. You can also do it manually if you choose to, but we'll leave it on every day. There is an option also for backing up on battery power. I probably wouldn't recommend this unless you have an iMac, which is always plugged in. Now, if I want to, I can exclude things from this backup. So if there's something specific on the hard drive or something that I don't want to have backups, I can click this little plus icon here, and that'll take me to my hard drive, my documents, and I can select certain things that I don't want to have backed up. But general rule of thumb is that you'd probably want to have everything backed up. And then click on Done. And that's basically it. It'll go ahead and back up everything. This will take the longest on the first run through because it has to back up everything. And then every subsequent backup, it will only copy over the changes. One item I neglected to mention is that when you're doing a backup of your Mac, you want to make sure that you select an external hard drive that is at least twice as large as what you're backing up. So if you're backing up your entire Mac and it's a 500 gigabyte hard drive, then you want to select a hard drive that is 1,000 gigabytes or 1 terabyte. That's very important. So let's take a look at what happens when we have a number of different Time Machine backups and how to select the one if we ever want to restore it to the Mac. Let's go ahead and see where our backup is for our external hard drive on the Apple Time Machine. I'm going to go to System Settings, and then I'm going to click on General, and I'm going to click on Time Machine. After that's come up, it'll be at the top of the screen. I'm going to click on that with my left button and go to Browse Time Machine Backups. And then we get this little animation here, which is kind of cool. We have these windows here in front here. I can go over to the right-hand side and I can look back. So we're actually going back in time, which is a little bit freaky. But this is going all the way back. See, right now we're at May 4th. Over the right-hand side here, May 4th of 2024. This was at 6:30 p.m. I can keep on going back to a different date. You see how that date changes as we go back with the Time Machine. And these are all what they call restore points. These are all, as I mentioned before, these are all incremental backups that the Mac performs. These are all different points that you can restore your Mac to, and it'll take whatever applications, the documents you have, wherever you've saved all of them, it will restore to that point. Getting into specifics about how to restore a Mac to a previous version with Apple's Time Machine is a little bit beyond the scope of today's video, but I will leave links in the description if you want to contact me for a consultation, which is something I also offer. Today we talked about Time Machine, we talked about how to utilize it with a Mac, and we've talked about best backup practices. If you found this video useful, please give it a like and subscribe to Mackie Tech, your home for IT solutions. And please stay tuned for next week. We're going to be talking a little bit more about backups with respect to IBM compatible and talk a little bit more about backing up to the cloud and those different options, as well as backing up to your network. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.